Thank you, Dr. Navle. I'm audible.
Yes, sir. Yes, yes.
Okay. So thank you, Dr. Navle, and rest of the members of Devgiri College. Thank you to Dr. Ashok, principal of the college, for organizing such a beautiful seminar. I also thank IASFS and his office bearers, Dr. Sri Narahari, Dr. Mishra, and thank you for allowing me to speak on this presentation. I will just, my topic for today is, I just hurriedly, sort of came in here. So pardon me, there is something wrong with what I talk about.
Sir, one more request. One more request is please take your time. See, I want to clear one fact that the great person, committed person devoted their life, and we should not bother about. You should proceed according to your plan, please.
Okay, thank you so much for Dr. Navale for those kind words. My topic today is just a short presentation of my upcoming book, because I thought that will probably give me an anchor of what are the kinds of work I am doing. So let me first start by sharing my screen.
You can share your screen, sir, please.
1 second, that is on time. Yes.
Yes. Okay. Okay.
I mean, officially the topic for discussion today is my upcoming novel, which I think is finished and it is now getting prepared to be published by Kalpa Viswa maybe in a month or a half. I think the work of book building is going on. And this is an opportunity for me to tell you a bit about it and the background and when it started, and because it represents a bit of a experimentation that I've been doing in science fiction. I think Dr. Navale has already introduced me, but still for those who have not met online before, here's a quick background about me. I started writing for science fiction when I was at a very young age. So the place for experimentation was a magazine called Fantastic. You may have heard about it. It takes a special mention in the history of Bengali science fiction. It was exclusively devoted by to science fiction and founded by Adrish Bardhan. And in a matter of relationships, he happens to be my uncle. And so I got a bit of mentoring from him when I was at a young age. And I have, I had in between, I had stopped writing and then I came back to writing. In the recent years, published a number of stories and novels in magazines and webzines. Published 2 books in science fiction, Nakshatra Pratik. Actually, the Nakshatra is a Bengali transliteration for the word Nakshatra. So if I speak in Hindi, it should be actually Nakshatra Pratik and Artha Trishna. Artha Trishna was the first Bengali steampunk. And I have also written a few reviews on Scroll. I first reviewed Dr. Suparna Banerjee's very eminent book on Indian science fiction. I think it's a very good book, which any enthusiast who is interested in Indian SF should take a look at. A very scholarly book. And last week, or early this week, there was one article I got published on Scroll.in on, I wrote a review on the Nebula and Hugo Award winners of 2020, which was Martha Wells's Motherboard series book and the book which got the Nebula Award. I will leave you in the chat. Let me leave a link to that Scroll article. I will not share my screen because here's a link to the Scroll article. Can I request someone talking to please mute the mic?
Nice.
Unmute yourself and continue, sir, please. Sumit Bardhan sir is being requested to unmute and continue. I muted all the participants. Bardhanji, please unmute.
I have unmuted. I had to again start sharing because.
Please. Take your time.
Okay, so my Artha Trishna was the first Bengali steampunk. I just shared a link, which was my review on the Hugo and Nebula Award winners in Scroll, just published earlier this week. So these are the things that I do. And one, as a writer, one of the things that keeps me sort of on track is whenever somebody tells something is not possible or has not been done. In fact, one of the reasons for writing Artha Trishna was in the group on a social media, I was seeing some posts saying that that you cannot write this kind of science fiction in Bengali because there are not enough history, there's not enough words, vocabulary is weak. And even if you write, people are not going to read this because they have a different taste, so on and so forth. So as a sort of a challenge, I wrote and tried to see whether it was possible to actually write steampunk in Bengali. And I think it did get a good reception. I have apart from writing, of course, I'm a professional in information technology, and my area of work is machine learning. So it gives me a bit of an idea of when these technologies are concerned. I am also a classical musician of the Itwa Gharana. I play the Mohanbi. So let me go back now. Let me go to my so let me now talk about my book. The book, the story takes in an imaginary world in a planet called Ambalika. Now, Ambalika is a very dystopian world where the human civilization is actually in regress. It is going back, and the reason for writing this kind of books was using a Japanese style of storytelling called the Jidaigeki. Now, Jidaigeki is a sort of a period drama. So a lot of filmmakers and writers and novelists have used the Jidaigeki style, and I'll probably get to talk a bit about more as I progress. So this was a broad idea of why I first created this world and then started writing the story. Now, the current novel that I'm going to talk about was not the first story created in this background of this new world. The first story to create that I wrote on the background of this world was a story called Mangal Deuri. The Deuri is a Bengali word which stands for a gateway or a portal. It's normally a structure that you will find in the beginning of the roads or the start of a palace, which sort of leads you to a city gate. This was published in the Kalpabisa webzine, and it was actually a retelling of a very famous movie by Akira Kurosawa called Rashomon. Now, Akira Kurosawa, it's a pretty old movie. It was filmed in 1950. It's almost 2/3 of a century old. And I wanted to tell this story, retell the story in a science fiction setup. Rashomon was based by Kurosawa on actually two short stories, Rashomon and Yabu no Naka, written by the Japanese author Ryunosuke Akutagawa. Okay, and when I wrote this, I took the material both from the movie Rashomon as well as original stories by Akutagawa. Now, and this is actually which it just started as a venture to see whether I can retell Kurosawa's film, because it's a movie which I hold very dear, because this movie talks about, if you've seen this movie, I think it will be freely available on the YouTube. I think it is there. The story is about a samurai who gets killed by a bandit, and his wife is violated. And then when a trial is held and the witness is called, and each witness gives an absolutely different story altogether. Now, the story ends, with a sort of catch note that sometimes the truth is not discernible. Even if 4 people or 5 people have seen an incident, each will give us a version which has the print of that person's own bias. I wrote that story because I saw this attempt sometimes of creating narratives out of events, and then people fighting over what actually happened. It's sometimes difficult for me to see that that the stories can be given twisted and given shapes. So I thought the Rashomon was a good story to be told, that sometimes the truth is not discernible and the my truth, the right truth is not the kind of approach we should take. So I took this setting and then story and set it in a very imaginary world called Ambalika, where the civilization had actually regressed. And when I did the story, and because to write the story, I had to read Akutagawa, and which sort of pulled me into the world of Japanese literature. Now here is a short write-up of Ryunosuke Akutagawa. He just lived for 35 years and he died by consuming barbitol. He ended his own life. But he's one of the famous literary figures in Japan. He's called the father of Japanese short story. In fact, one of the short story prizes called the Akutagawa Prize is given under his name. He was born in a period which is named the Taisho period. This is a period when the emperor who ruled Japan was very weak. And since he was weak, there was a lot of political struggle from the old order to the new order, and which led to a lot of political turmoil. So when Akutagawa was writing these stories, it would not have been very safe for him to have written openly. So what he did was he researched the history of Japan, where there are a lot of turmoil in society, there are a lot of fighting, then the peace was not there. And he used those historical settings either to write his own stories, and or he took some classical stories in these eras, like the Heian era, the Edo era, the early Meiji period, where there was a lot of political turmoil, there was a lot of unrest in society, and he told his story. So once I saw this, it gave me an idea that sometimes probably the historical stories could be retold and reset in a different setting, and you could tell your own story and sort of leave a note of caution. Now, before I, so the question is why did I choose historical literature? Let me share two definitions of science fiction. I think definition of science fiction is a very dangerous area. It's like a minefield. So you say something and people literally get up in arms. But let me share two definitions. One is by Kim Stanley Robinson, which you know more. He has authored of very famous books like the Mars trilogy, and the 2012. He's written lots of what is called hard science fiction. Now he says it's a historical literature, but only thing is the history is being written of the future, and it is an explicit or implicit fictional history. And what the history does, it connects the period that we are talking about to our present moment or to some moment in our past. So that the history in the future, history that you are writing is either somehow drawn from our current understandings and current things that we see, or it is drawn from something which may have happened in the past. And John Campbell, one of the biggest names in science fiction, he says, if you are going to be writing science fiction, then your effort should be creating something called a prophetic extrapolation from the known. So you look at the known and then extrapolate it in the future. Now, I know there are many definitions on science fiction. There are ways and means, there are various ways you could define science fiction. But I broadly, and again, as I said, it's the whole responsibility is on me. I broadly define science fiction writers in two classes, the Wellesians and the Vernians. The Vernians are onto what is called hard science fiction. We get into the nitty-gritties of technology, look at how things work, look at the mystery of various scientific facts. And then there are the Wellesians, and who are more interested in what's happened to society post a scientific event or post some scientific sports of event which has got a scientific basis. I consider myself to be a Wellesian. My consideration is not the nitty-gritties of technology, but how technology or certain other things can affect society. And I always give this example. Possibly I've given this in my last talk, and I apologize to those who may have already heard it. If you look at H.G. Wells's classic story, The Time Machine, and you look at Time Machine, though the story is named Time Machine, the time machine itself occupies a very little space. How the time machine works, what is the basis of its working, what are the technology, what are the scientific facts, how does it look, very little is shared in the story. The story uses a time machine to transport the protagonist to a place in future where he sees how too much of indolence and the necessity of not struggling has made humanity very indolent. It has lost all its initiative. And not only that, the too much of differentiation between the haves and the have-nots has actually divided humanity into two classes. The Eloi, who live a very indolent, very pleasure-seeking life, and the Morlocks, who live underground, who actually provide all the necessities of life, and as a price, at the cost, they prey on the Eloi. But if you look at this story, this is something that always inspires me, because in here, the time machine, the technology of time machine is very, very secondary. The primary is the story about the state of society. In this case, the time machine serves the purpose of the ship in Robinson Crusoe's story. It just transports the protagonist from one place to another. Beyond that, it has no other purpose. It is what normally in Greek drama you call the deus ex machina. It just is a plot element to just come out of one place, it from one place to another. So let me now come to my upcoming novel. The novel is called Asi Shapta. Asi, the word Asi means sword, and Shapta is a Sanskrit word which means cursed. So the whole the story is based about sword play and a person's cursed sword. So without revealing too much, because the story is not yet published, and giving spoilers. So let me tell you a brief background of this novel, and probably give you an idea of my thought process and how I've tried to reinterpret or redo science fiction when it comes in Bengali. Because I always try to look at things in a new perspective and try and do experimental new things. My first experiment was trying to bring in steampunk into Bengali, and this is experiment is to bring the Japanese jidaigeki style into Bengali. This is just a promotional poster. It says Asi Shapta, the story meaning the curse of the sword. Now, before I give you the story, there is one word that I would like to sort of share with everybody. And this is a word called novum. The word was coined by the science fiction scholar Darko Suvin. And he gives a definition of science fiction as a literary device which uses a dissonance between cognition and estrangement. Now, what is this complicated sentence, dissonance between cognition and estrangement? Cognition is what we know about this world, what we are aware of this world, our present, our history, our culture, our civilization, our technology. And estrangement are things that we do not like it. We think that there are certain things in society, there are certain aspects of technology, society, culture that actually should not be as they are. And the author then uses this sort of dichotomy, this dialectic between what we know and we do not dislike, to create a new world, which Darko Suvin calls a novum. So this novum, what is the novum? This is a absolutely different world. It's a radically different world from ours. Okay, what we know the real world, what in Hindi or any other language you call Vastav. The word that the artist is creating is a novum. The novum is separate from the Vastav, or the reality that we experience every day to day. And using this novum, then as a device, then the author then tells his or her story. So I want to set this, and the definition I've taken from Dr. Suparna Banerjee's book on Indian science fiction. As I said, it's a very, very good book, a seminal book on Indianism. That's worth the read. So let me now jump onto the basis of the story. Now, why did I write the story? First of all, I think the previous speaker was telling that you have this notion in most of readers in Indian science fiction The science fiction is basically for a children's book, is about children. These are sort of books which are used to make science easy for children, sort of introduce them to the beauty of science, and it is sort of a educative device, educational device to take to introduce people to the world of science, to popularize science. I wrote this mainly because I wanted to create something which once for all can be, will be, I hope, labeled as a not for children essay. Very honestly, this is not a book written for children. This book is written for adults, and the contents are meant only for adult eyes. Now, this book also I used, various sources of material. My first source was again a book, again a movie, Japanese movie by producer Kihachi Okamoto called The Sword of Doom. It's a very old movie. It came out in 1966. Now, Okamoto, took the material of his movie from a serial novel. I call it serial because the novel appeared from the period of almost for 30 years, from 1913 to 1943, in various Japanese newspaper and magazines and all. Now, some of the English translations, only few parts are available in English. I could not find more because the story continued even beyond what Kihachi Okamoto showed in his movie Sword of Doom. The name of this book, this novel was written by Kaijan Nakajato, and the name of the book is, the story was Dai Bosatsu Tage, which means the Great Bodhisattva Pass. The actual story, in the actual story, there is a mountain pass called the Bodhisattva Pass, and most of the story, the historical story, takes around the pass among the protagonists who either live there or are passing through that. However, when I wrote the first story in the world of Ambalika and using Kurosawa's movie, I just retold it in a different setting. This is not a retelling. This goes a step beyond, and I have rebuilt it. I have taken the material as a core of this story, but I have put things that I have taken from other sources. So it's more of a rebuilding rather than a retelling. Now, though Naka, the movie Sword of Doom and that it's a story on which is based was the main influence, there have been other influence. The book has a lot of philosophy on fencing, okay, and sword fighting, and those philosophy comes from a book called Gorin no Sho, or the Book of Five Rings. This was written by a Japanese author in 1643. His name was Miyamati Musashi, and he had a fencing school, and he has given a lot of techniques of sword fighting and fencing. So some material is sourced from that. I have also put some Lovecraftian horror in this book, and Lovecraft has one of the Lovecraftian deities is a blind god Azazoth, and who is a sort of epitome of chaos. He introduces chaos, is a lord of chaos. So I have utilized a bit of the we have Lovecraftian horror from it to introduce chaos in this story. I have also, sourced my material from number of haikus and death poems from poets such as Sengai Gibbon, Fusei Ajiro, and those are sort of mixed into the story. Very difficult to sort of take this out. I have read it and interpreted, and somebody wants me to point out also where I've used them. It is very difficult. But one source, and haikus are pretty well known that they're sort of couplets which has got 2 or 3 lines. But one type of literature is called, in Japan, is called a death poems. Actually, these poems or short couplets were written mostly by the Zen monks or samurai warriors when they knew that death was near, and they wrote of the ephemeral nature of the world and the journey which are coming. So this also became a sort of inspiration for me to look at death through their eyes. So these were some of the sources. There will be other also, sometimes very difficult to even point them out. Now, let me, since come to world building and the novum. What is my novum? What is my world? It is the stage or the novum on which the story is getting executed is a planet called Ambalika. Now, man has somehow traveled across the stars to this planet and settled down there, and they find that there is the ruins of an alien race, The alien race is nowhere to be seen, but the structures, the buildings made by them, some of the technologies are scattered on the planet. And I did not again use the word alien. Now, I have a habit of making up words. I do not know it's a good thing or a bad thing, but one problem was that when I started writing, I found that there was not too much of technical words, or the words were not very suitable to literature. I mean, one word for alien in the translated is Vingrahi. No, residents of another planet, but somehow it sounded a bit odd to my ears. So I used created a word called Bhinnar. Bhinna, is different, and Nara is man, so I get Bhinnar. That's a word that I create. Now, in this society, in this planet, after the human beings have reached, they have regressed. They have lost all the knowledge and skills have been lost. Society has been uh, gone back into semi-feudal state. Politics has gone back. People are using old technologies and they are using leftover alien technology by scavenging them. Now, why I created a world like this is as a sort of caution. As I said, uh, from Darko Suvin's example, that the no one comes from cognizance and that estrangement. The estrangement for my estrangement comes from the fact that society is like a human body. That human body, if we do not care for our body, if we are not taking care of our hygiene, if we're not taking care of our health, this body will fall apart. It's the second law of thermodynamics. The world goes from less chaos to more chaos. So society is also like that. If you just let it be there and do nothing to fix it and then manage it, it could also fall apart. In this world, this rule of law is almost vanished. It's almost people live by the sword. It's might is right. And in this world, iron is not in sufficient quantity found. So people are using a kind of glass which I've named Ispat Kanch, or steel glass, which the technology they borrowed from whatever leftover alien remains were there. People have forgotten use of guns. Warfare has reduced to medieval style sword play. And it's a world that has almost fallen back to medievalism. It has regressed. Men who have traveled the galaxies to reach the world now have sort of gone back. Instead of progressing, they have regressed. Now, if you think this is not possible, I would like to draw your attention to the fact there has been actually many civilizations in history. Etruscans, Harappans, who after living, reaching a pinnacle have just vanished, and not much is known about them. And for society to come back to that level of civilization took again hundreds of years, if not thousands. And there are many. So that was my dissonance of the world I know. There are very strange creatures that I created for the story. The main animal here is the camel ape, which I did not write here. I call it Utia Bandar in Hindi. It's a camel ape. It's a ape-like animal which moves around and has a body of like ape, and the head and neck are like a camel. Then there's a megafauna which looks like a deer, which sports a pair of whiskers. So they call it a Mahamriga. And the word Kaisari comes from Kaisar, which is a former emperor of Germany, who had a thick pair of mustaches. Then a cat which looks a bit of like a kite, and then a colored beast which long neck. It's used like a horse or a mount by the humans. Named it Gribin from the word Griba, which it means a neck. And there is a buffalo-like animal, blue colored, which uses a beast of burden called the Nilkanta Mahish. These animals appear in the story. So what are the main themes? But apart from all these things which are nice to know, which gets a sense of awe, wonder, which are the main things. The main themes that I wanted to address is here. Either the force of chaos can destroy a society from within. It just exploits the fault lines and pits man against man, creates a lot of problems that can go between various parts of society and can destroy society from within. And the civilization is not unidirectional. It doesn't, since we are civilized, technologically progressed today, doesn't mean we'll keep in going in the same direction. There has been in the past and in the future, it's possible that civilization can regress. I took the philosophy of fencing from the Japanese fencing book. I looked at the concept of shunya, which is a Buddhist concept of non-existence. I took, it's very briefly, I touched upon one of the concepts in the Nasadya Sutta of Rigveda, Nasadya Sinno Sadasitta Daning Nasidrajo no Vyomana Paraviyat, which it's a beautiful sentence, which means there was neither existence nor non-existence. There was not air, not space. What was there? So that's probably a concept of shunya. Not shunya doesn't mean zero over here. So I end by giving a few quotes. I translated them in English because it has some philosophy of fencing and some politics. So one of the teachers says, "Do you know what is the similarity between the philosophy of Mahakala and the sword? Both of the purpose is to destroy the sense of I in man. So the philosophy, as well as the sword, will destroy the I in you. If I said in a very satirical way. In another character in the same story says, in politics, ideals are a burden. They pull you back, preventing progress. Politics has a single goal: capture power and enjoy this world with this power. I mean, if I said in a very joking manner, in a jocular vein, we have the Sanskrit phrase called Veera Vagya Vasundhara. I think now it has become politics Vagya Vasundhara. So I probably wanted to bring that in. Here is the cover of the book. It's illustrated by a famous illustrator whose name is Omkarnath Bhattacharya. He's kind enough to illustrate my book. Took a lot of trouble in creating something which fits the story. And so that is all about from me. Thank you for, again, all of you for listening to me patiently. And thank you, Dr. Navale and Dr. Srinara Hari, Dr. Arvind Mishra, members of Devgiri College, IFSS, for allowing me this platform to talk to you.
Thank you.